Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be showing you how I make my homemade shepherd's pie. So if you'd like to see how I make this dish, then just keep on watching. First, I'm going to start off with about 6 potatoes. Now these are very big potatoes. I got them from Costco. So if you're using some of the smaller ones, you're going to want quite a few. I would say maybe about like 8, 9, possibly 10. You want it to cover the entire casserole dish. So once you have all your potatoes washed, we're going to go ahead and peel all the potatoes. And I'm doing this because I'm going to actually make homemade potatoes. I'm not going to buy the store-bought instant potatoes. So I'm going to be boiling mine before we even start on the dish. If you guys would rather buy the instant, then you can go ahead and do that. You don't have to do this part. But if you are going to do it like me, then I would suggest boiling them first because the potatoes are probably going to take about 30 minutes to be fork tender. And I also always peel any vegetable over a paper towel. To me, it's just a way easier cleanup. You just, once you're done, you pick it all up, you throw it in the trash. You don't even have to try to scrape it off of like a cutting board or anything like that. So I just use a paper towel. Then once that's finished, you are going to cut and cube the potatoes. You want them all to be kind of uniformed, that way they cook evenly through. Make sure you wash off your potatoes before you start cutting, just in case there's any extra dirt left on them. Then I'm grabbing 2 pots and pans, one for the actual dish and one to boil the potatoes. Once the potatoes are done, then you're going to put your water on hot. I usually do hot. You can do cold, but I just do hot because it makes it go faster. And then you're going to fill up the pot and also throw the potatoes in. I want the water to kind of cover the potatoes because they're going to absorb a lot of the water. Put these babies on the stove, and then you're going to turn the stove on to about high to medium or somewhere in the middle. You want them to boil because, like I said, they have about 30 minutes that they need to boil. While the potatoes are boiling, I'm going to start prepping the veggies. So right now I'm going to start with the celery, and I'm taking off all the stalks because I need to get to the heart. You definitely want this into it. It adds so much flavor, but it's at the way bottom. It's that little guy right there. I swear this makes a world of a difference when it comes to flavor. It is so good. Everything I make that has celery in it, I always add the heart. I do it with chicken noodle soup. I add so much. It just works amazing. And then I'm going to take about 3 stalks and I'm going to dice those up. So what I do is I slice them down the middle about 3 times, and then I dice them. Then I'm going to also be dicing up a small yellow onion. I'm pretty sure you can use white. I'm not sure about like red or a sweet onion. I just use a yellow onion. To me, it adds more flavor, but you can use whatever onion you would like. Now, if you don't soak your potatoes in cold water first, they will have this on the top. This is just the starch. And what I do is I just get a ladle or a spoon and I just scoop it out and throw it in the sink. It won't hurt anything. It's just all the starch coming to the top. You don't have to get rid of it, but I would recommend it. It leaves like a weird texture. And on to cooking the actual dish. So what I'm going to add is about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of ground beef, and I'm going to cook that up until it gets completely browned and golden. And now for my best friend. If you guys have watched any of my other cooking videos, whenever I work with ground beef, this thing is the holy grail of all spatulas. It's amazing. It grounds up the ground beef, and that way you don't have to sit there and try to like hit it as hard as you can to try to make it ground up. I don't know. I love it. And also, if you guys have too much moisture, just add a little bit of salt, and the salt should drown out all the moisture because we don't really want all the juices from the meat in there. We're going to add our own juices. And here we have onions, celery, carrots, and peas. If you guys use fresh carrots and fresh peas in this dish, you want to throw them in probably when you throw in the celery. So right now I'm going to be throwing in the onion. I'm going to add about 3 cloves of garlic, but because I already have it minced up in a jar, I'm going to use probably about 2 tablespoons of it. And then I'm also going to throw in the celery. Like I said, if you guys are using fresh carrots and peas, I would throw them in after the celery starts to wilt down just a little bit. Now, while the main dish is cooking, we are going to work on the potatoes. So I'm going to strain my potatoes, and then I'm going to move them into a bowl. You can always leave them in the pot that they cooked in. It's just easier for me to show you guys in a bowl what I'm doing. But I'm going to add them to the bowl and then add in milk, butter, salt, and pepper. Now this part is completely up to you. Like I said, if you do it this way, if you do the instant stuff, just completely ignore all this. Just follow what the package says. But if you do it this way, you add it to your liking. I ended up adding the entire stick of butter. I know that that's a lot, but I mean, there's a lot of potatoes. This is a huge amount of potatoes. So I use the entire stick of butter, and then I salt and peppered to taste, and I only added a little bit of milk. You don't want it to be too watery, otherwise the dish will kind of come out a little bit runny, and you don't want that. You want them to be stiff enough. So I would say add milk slowly. And once the potatoes are done, then we're just going to set them off to the side, and we'll come back to those later. Back to the dish. So now we are going to be seasoning everything. This is going to be salt, pepper, we're going to do a little bit of paprika, we're going to do garlic salt, we're going to do onion powder. This, once again, I just season to taste. I will be leaving the measurements down below what I suggest, but I mostly go by just tasting. And I would let those seasonings get in there for about 5 minutes, so just keep mixing it around. And once all the seasonings are in and the meat starts to absorb some of the flavor, we are going to add some flour. Now we are going to use a lot of flour. It feels like what you want, if you watch my stew video, you want the meat to have like this coating over it. So you want it to have like this thickness. And what that's going to do is the flour, when we start to add the wine and the beef broth, it's going to make it more of like a stew-like texture instead of a soup-like texture. So we want it like a stew, not like a soup. once everything is all clumped up together, then we are going to be adding tomato paste. What I grab is a small can of tomato paste, and I use about half of it. Now you're going to want to work this in. It's going to take a little bit of muscle because everything is already clumped up together, so it's not going to want to let the tomato paste in. But you want this to coat everything. So just keep working with it. The more that it heats up, the more that it will start to let itself go, and it will start to coat itself on top of all the meat and all the veggies. Now on to the wine portion of this. Don't worry, you don't have to use wine if you don't want to. You can always use grape juice. It works just as well. The reason I like to use red wine is because it adds more of a richer taste to it. But how much I added, I wanted to be able to see it through the meat. So I added a couple of cups into this part of it. What I wanted was to bring it to a boil. When you bring wine to a boil, that gets rid of all the alcohol content. So that's more of an eyeball thing. Like I said, I will give a couple of suggestions down below on how much I actually added. And because I had canned peas and canned carrots, now this is when I'm adding them in. If you added them in before, then skip this part, but I'm adding them in now because they're basically already soft, so I'm more just heating them up than actually cooking them. And we're going to be adding some more seasonings. We're going to be adding thyme, rosemary, and parsley. You can do it both dry or fresh. I added dry. You can use whatever. It doesn't really matter. And also, if you don't really like some of these seasonings, you can always take them out. And once that is all incorporated, now we are going to be adding beef stock. Now I'm adding enough beef stock that I want it to look like stew. So I want it to be kind of like a thick gravy, if that kind of makes sense. You don't want it to be too watery. Once again, not a soup. We're making a stew. So I want the mixture to look like a gravy instead of a soup. Now while we let that simmer, we're going to move to the stove. You want to bake it at 400 degrees, so we're going to preheat it to 400, and then we're going to grab our casserole dish. I'm not really sure what size this is, but it ends up working out perfect. And then you're going to throw in the mixture. You're going to want to spread it out evenly. The more that it is spread out evenly, the better it's going to cook. Then everything will be uniform. Then you're going to take the potatoes that we made earlier, and you're just going to plop them on top. And once the entire amount of potatoes is on there, you're going to spread those across evenly as well. Now I added cheese to one side. I am not a big fan of cheese. I know, don't kill me, but the cheese side is for my husband. And then you're going to throw it into the oven and put it in for 20 minutes. And once the 20 minutes is done, it is ready to be served. This is my homemade shepherd's pie. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you tried it, please let me know. And that's going to be it for this video. If you liked it, please give me a big thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And I'll see you guys very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.